This morning's money news includes food stamps, interest rates, and rent freezes.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Schwab. Schwab offers investors choices like full-service wealth management, self-directed investing options, and trading on Think or Swim. More at schwab.com.
I'm David Brancaccio in Los Angeles. It's now 30 days of government shutdown. It's now likely that most of the 42 million people on food stamps or SNAP will not get their November benefits starting this weekend. Most, I'm saying, because some states are trying to find ways to fill the gap when, if the government reopens, the delayed money would come. We've been reporting on how this hits vulnerable families and food banks nationwide, which are already coping with a spike in demand. Marketplace's Samantha Fields reports now that the abrupt loss of SNAP dollars will also hurt stores that accept food stamps, actually EBT cards in practice.
Every month, the federal government spends about $8 billion on SNAP benefits. The millions of people who get those benefits then spend them at businesses, often in their communities.
This is a really important, invisible piece of the economy.
Lily Roberts at the Center for American Progress says it's not just people who qualify for those benefits who rely on them.
There are stores in neighborhoods that have more than 50% of their sales from SNAP. Those are stores that are typically in lower income areas or that are in rural areas.
If benefits just stop, Stephanie Johnson at the National Grocers Association says it will be a big deal for those stores, especially small independent ones.
Grocer staffing and inventory are planned around SNAP benefits, so a lapse could lead to reduced employee hours, losses in perishable food items, and declining sales.
She says SNAP supports nearly 400,000 jobs in the U.S. and helps generate about $20 billion in wages and over $4 billion in taxes. Elaine Waxman at the Urban Institute says it acts as a form of stimulus, especially during economic slowdowns.
We sometimes talk about SNAP as if it's a cost and a drain on the economy, but it's actually an important component of the way that we not only assure that people can have enough food to eat, but that the businesses in the food sector have a regular flow of income.
Every dollar the government spends on SNAP generates over $1.50 in economic activity. I'm Samantha Fields for Marketplace.
It happened as foreshadowed. The Federal Reserve lowered interest rates yesterday by 0.25 percentage point, with the job market losing steam. But Fed Chair Jerome Powell made no promises about more cuts this year.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell set the tone in his opening statement at yesterday's press conference, even before he started taking questions. He said a rate cut in December
is not a foregone conclusion. Far from it.
In fact, Powell said there are strongly differing views about what to do at the next meeting. Part of the problem is the federal government isn't producing economic data right now because of the shutdown. Powell said there's a growing chorus of central bank officials who think the Fed should wait before lowering rates again. The division at the Fed is clear. There were 2 dissents at this week's meeting. One dissenter wanted even lower rates. The other didn't want a rate cut at all. I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
And Marketplace's China correspondent is also covering the agreement between the presidents of the U.S. and China for a 1-year trade truce that will roll back some tariffs and other restrictions. That coverage will be in the Marketplace Morning podcast later if you miss it on the air. Market stock index futures are all down in the about the 3 to 0.4% range.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Yubico, makers of the YubiKey. YubiKey helps protect important digital applications and services. YubiKey, still undefeated, the original passkey. More at yubico.com. And by MarketWatch. From housing prices to inflation, the market is uncertain. MarketWatch has tools to help navigate the road ahead. MarketWatch, don't short yourself.
Early voting is underway to choose New York City's mayor. The apparent front-runner, Zohran Mamdani, has made a rent freeze for 1 million rent-subsidized apartments his signature issue. His opponents, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and Guardian Angels founder Curtis Sliwa, says that's a bad idea. Now, freezing rent has a recent track record in New York. Marketplace's Carla Javier reports.
In New York City, the mayor appoints members of the Rent Guidelines Board. And every year, the RGB decides how much rents on stabilized units increase. Former Chair Rachel Godsill explained the board's balancing act at a June 2015 meeting.
The purpose of the law and the role of the RGB are to protect tenants from excessively high rents while also ensuring that owners can pay for necessary costs and receive a fair return on their investment.
That year, the balance the RGB struck was a 0% rent increase. The next year, it extended the freeze. Oksana Mironova is a senior policy analyst with the Community Service Society of New York. Her organization surveys low-income New Yorkers.
Usually, there's about 25 to 30% of people who fall behind on the rent.
But she says during the freeze,
you actually saw that particular hardship drop by about 8 or 9 points, and other hardships as well.
Tenants reported fewer utility shutoffs and eviction threats, Mironova says. But landlords of rent-stabilized units found the freeze challenging, according to Small Property Owners of New York board president Ann Korchak. She points to RGB data from 2017, showing they faced increased costs for insurance, taxes, labor.
Operating expenses increased over 6% and 4.5% in 2018. So those rent freezes meant that, rent was not keeping up.
Korchak co-owns 2 buildings that include rent-stabilized units. She says that buildings like hers are old and needed repairs during the freeze.
If you don't have enough revenue to keep up with your expenses, you often are now delaying a repair.
The RGB froze rents again early in the pandemic, but the nationwide eviction moratorium and assistance programs make it hard to draw lessons from that freeze. Since then, the board has approved increases of between 1.5% and 3.25% annually. Elsewhere in the country, freezes are relatively rare, says Edward Getz at the University of Minnesota, but rent regulation may be gaining steam. St. Paul, Minnesota put it in place.
And you have it on the ballot in places across the country, in the Midwest and other eastern cities where it hadn't been on the agenda before.
Getz says those jurisdictions will be watching how New York balances the needs of tenants and landlords going forward. I'm Carla Javier from Marketplace.
And shares of Facebook Meta are down a striking 10% in pre-market trading right now after a published report the company wants to borrow through a $25 billion bond sale. It's the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.